if you haven't watched, the 2.0 live stream has just dropped, and we got some crazy announcements, but today we are just going to talk about Sparkle. And Sparkle brings a very, very insane kit to the game. Essentially, Sparkle acts as this game-changing character where you gain skill point cap, and you also will gain more skill points for your whole team. So essentially, on Sparkle's talent allows you to gain the skill point cap from 5 to 7, so you have a bigger total, while Sparkle's ultimate gives you more skill points to use. What this means is essentially Sparkle becomes a very, very universally beneficial character to like every team comp in the whole game, though I will say it's more isolated toward crit, as even though DOT can benefit from more skill points, it's not really enough, I think, to be worth it over a character like Ron-Mei over Sparkle. I think it would be better. I think even Asta for the speed would probably be better as well. So I think it will kind of have that same idea to Bronya and kind of be this kind of quantum Bronya to a sense. And we see this as well with her skill, as they're showing now. Her skill allows you to advance an ally forward, but not fully. And what this means is potential comps like follow-up attacks, i.e. your Jingyuens, your Topaz, your Doctor Ratios, they can benefit on more sides of their kit than a Bronya would benefit them. As the follow-up, your Lightning Lord can potentially be boosted by Sparkle with proper management. Of course, this management can be a little difficult potentially, especially with a character like Jingyuan, but this does bring a lot of interesting ideas on that concept with follow-up in general. And also, this is the more interesting one, with more skill points equal more Dawn, Hung, and Bibber Lunae skills. As I talked about a little bit here, you can look at this and you see like Sparkle raises the skill points max, ult restores multiple skill points, advance forward similar to Bronya's skill, and there's just a lot of ideas that can come up from here as well. And this does also bring in another interesting idea, right? And this is another thing I put in my note. You could potentially run both Bronya and Sparkle, and while this idea may not seem very correct at first, I do think this puts an interesting thought, as at E0, Bronya's main flaw is that Bronya will run out of skill points very quickly, but if you combo that with Sparkle and all of a sudden those skill point problems float away, and if you have E1, you just have more skill points for your Imbibitor Lunae anyways, so you can put these two characters together to have more action advance, double down on action advance synergy, and this creates a scenario where it's just very, very hard to deal with, right? And we'll go over some team comps as well. You can just assume that with these, we're talking about Lynx will be Sparkle, and there's a few characters that I don't have, so I'll just tell you guys what characters those are when I go over them. But for the first team, this one's kind of obvious. Mono Quantum. This shouldn't surprise everyone. This was the team everyone theoried, and Sparkle is ridiculously good with Mono Quantum, so any person who was fearing that Scylla had fallen off, no. You just need this. You just need Sparkle. And Sparkle's coming now. So Mono Quantum is very good in literally every content in the game. Pure Fiction, MOC, does not matter. Quantum's good anywhere, and it very good anywhere. You will clear very, very nicely with this comp. And also Sparkle has some other benefits too, with Silverwolf, of course, with the implant, but more skill points in AoE content is actually very beneficial for skill point for Silverwolf as well, because sometimes in AoE content you would be forced to only use E on like one enemy, push that down, and then maybe you can use E on the second one, but you're so low on skill points because Seal is already using your skill points with her E, and then Silverwolf's using skill points with her E, and then sometimes Fuchuan needs to reset skill points for her little field, and this becomes very problematic for speed point usage. Sparkle completely eliminates this problem, and this alone makes Sparkle a very, very, very insane character for Quantum. And I go over more comps as well, but we also saw this in the live stream. I should probably mention this first, is they showed King Kui. King Kui, of course, is the gamble gremlin. More skill point, more gambling. If you miss, you get more advantage anyways, so missing isn't as bad, and oftentimes become a very, very good scenario for King Kui. So Sparkle, King Kui, Silverwolf, Fuchuan becomes a good idea. And there's also another interesting idea that I'll talk about. This isn't really a quantum idea, because I think Ron-Mei is better on this, but you can also use like Zui Yi, right? Yi, very good break potential with this team, and you have a lot of like break effect synergy. But I do think it's better with Ronmei, though potentially because of how Ronmei works, Ronmei being a very broken character. There's so many Ronmei showcases where you just see Ronmei with no healer. And this idea actually works very well with this. Sparkle, Yi, Ronmei, Silverwolf. You have Silverwolf with the implant. You have Yi do the breaks. And all of a sudden this becomes a very, very strong comp potentially. Where you get so much break effect damage. You get so many quantum impacts. So many skill points. And the crit buff, even though crit buff doesn't boost break effect, because Yi has a kind of semi-boosting kit, this actually becomes a very relevant idea for these characters as well. And for another idea, this is a very simple one. How I said follow-up attack is another idea that gets boosted by the action advance of Sparkle. And this is a kind of comp that takes advantage of this. As you have Topaz follow-up attacks, you can boost the follow-up attacks off of Numby, you can boost the follow-up attacks on Ratio. And why this is so good is similar to why Bronya was good on this team. But Bronya had one flaw, of course. More action advance does mean more follow-ups, which ergo means more damage for your follow-up team. But because the Bronya buff fell off, that sometimes this means you're losing out on a lot of potential damage that could be there, because you're not getting the full value of the buff, because the value of the buff and a lot of the follow-up characters' damage comes from their follow-up. So you kind of want this kind of scenario where your follow-up attack is boosted too, and Sparkle creates that scenario with proper management. As if your 50% or whatever percent action advance Sparkle will give you doesn't bring you all the way up and brings you after your follow-up, right? Like if you have Dr. Ratio ult down, you Sparkle advance, then you have the buff from Sparkle, and then you can attack with a different character, and your Dr. Ratio follow-up attacks will be boosted. And the same idea applies for Numby and Topaz, which another character that is very beneficial to this, right, is actually Jing Yuan. And pretend Arlen's Jing Yuan here, but you can use a comp of like Fu Xuan, Ting Yun, Jing Yuan, and Sparkle. And because Sparkle is doing action events, you get more Lightning Lords and more 10-shot Lightning Lords. But if your Sparkle doesn't advance fully the Jing Yuan, right, then you can have a 10 Lightning Lord boosted by Sparkle's skill. And this becomes a very, very interesting idea, of course. Very, very interesting idea. And another concept to talk about here is the idea of hyper buffing a character. Of course, you can do this with really any crit-based character in the game, but you can have like Bronya, you can have Sparkle, and you can maybe use a character like Danheng and Bibiter Lune, and you get a lot of skill point resurgence, a lot of skill points come back, and you can kind of fake having E2 on Danheng and Bibiter Lune, this by having both Bronya and Sparkle, because you're getting so many turns back anyways. But this is an idea that doesn't just apply to Danheng and Bibiter Lune. This applies to every character. You could use this on normal Danheng, you'd use this on, you need a debuff for Ratio. You can use this on Serval, you can use this on Shu Shang, you can use this on Yongking. Like, there's so many characters. You can use Arland, benefits from this idea. There's this, though Arland doesn't really need Sparkle anyways, because there's too many skill points, but more action advance, more damage. Simple concept, right? Scylla, Topaz, hyper carry, like a lot of hyper carry comps will want to have Sparkle. This is because action advance is such a good tool, and more skill points makes it easier to do more damage, and that is just a concept that will age till the end of time. And this one I wanted to show off a different idea, and that is Ronmei Sparkle. We talked about this a little with Yi, of course, but there's more diverse ideas that you can do other than the Yi here. You can also just do a character like Dr. Ratio, so you get the debuff of Pela, and then you have Dr. Ratio get boosted by Sparkle plus Ronmei, and that's a good synergy. You can also use like Silverwolf here as well. There's a lot of very interesting ideas, but this is a very universal kind of idea. That's because of how powerful Ronmei is in MOC. It becomes a very, very potent idea for zero cyclers, as you just have more value, have more output, and it becomes this very, very scary to deal with, and a very hard thing to manage against. And the final thing I want to talk about is relics. I think the relic idea, it's kind of your basics for support, right? supports kind of use the same few relics, and this should surprise like absolutely no one. 4-piece wind will have a niche because ultimate more advanced as well, but also this is the 2-piece speed set, so you can use ideas of like 2-piece speed, 2-piece quantum, 2-piece speed, 2-piece tank, and this use like other sets. We don't fully know what Sparkle scales off of. If it's like Bronya, then it will be crit damage. We don't have a crit damage set, so there's not really a set we can use to take advantage of that. And then for planar ornaments, that's where it becomes a little more interesting, right? There's quite a few planar ornaments that would be pretty good. Of course, you can use the default one, right, where you just have Fleet of the Ageless, and you give your whole team an attack boost. This is okay. It's been power creep for a long time, though. Sprightly Von Whack is another okay one. If you have it and you get good crit damage on Von Whack, then it's okay. But the real ones I would recommend for a build would actually this be, as surprised to no one, would be Broken Keel, especially if this character is similar to Bronya, where it buffs crit damage. Could be a very funny combination, right? And then finally, Penacony, the Land of Dreams. And Penacony, the Land of Dreams will be especially good if you're using this kind of mono quantum setup, as you boost your energy, more skill points, more quantum damage, more wins, you know? And that's just a very, very strong idea for the game in general. And yeah, that kind of wraps up my full thoughts on Sparkle. Let me know what you guys think on the character. I personally think Sparkle is insanely cracked. And also let me know if you want me to cover a different character. I do think it's a little bit more simple for Black Swan, a little bit more simple for Misha too, as Black Swan is a character built off debuff, so you put it with Kafka, and I don't think there's too much to say there. And also like Misha, Ice Destruction default, put him with Run May, and it'll be very good. Put him with Pela, that's a very good option as well. Stuff like that. But yeah, that's it for this one. Let me know what you guys think about Sparkle. Overall, this is a cracked character, and then tell me what you guys think of the 2.0 live stream. It was a very, very cool live stream, and I do think they gave a lot of good information from it. So it should be a very, very fun watch. But yeah, that's it for this one. Goodbye. Later.